about Jeffrey Epstein, who is back in the news again after many years. If we know Jeffrey Epstein, he sort of came into the public light a number of years ago as a wealthy socialite who was hosting lots of celebrities and heads of state and other really important billionaire moguls in his New York apartment, in his Miami home, in his Caribbean island, as well as a number of underage girls. If we look back at his roots, he's a New York guy who came up in the finance world. At some point in time, he gets linked up with Les Wexner, who is the billionaire founder of the Limited and Victoria's Secret and those brands. Somehow becomes his financial money guy going on, ends up taking over power of attorney of all his finances with the ability to essentially control his money and spend it how he wants. And the next thing you know, this guy is hobnobbing with the who's who of everyone, especially on the East Coast social scene, right? And at some point in time, there starts to be some information that comes out that this guy is hosting parties and also interacting with female minors in inappropriate sexual instances and interactions, right? So we've heard about this, right?
You got a mixtures of wealthy people and politicians, power. Usually there's something nefarious affiliated with those type of parties because they're not like innocuous, innocent parties. Kind of like a little almost secret society and invite only.
It's definitely exclusive.
Yes.
And also I think when you have that sort of mix of wealth and power and status, right, you get, like you said, some nefarious behavior sort of, breeds in that area because there's an air of, I'm untouchable, or we can get away with anything, or we could buy anything or buy our way out of anything, right?
I mean, the other part of it is also that there were warning signs going back to his time in Florida. He was actually part of a criminal case back when he was in Florida. They got a sweetheart deal that basically got him to avoid jail time, and he moves his base of operations to New York after that. There were warning signs going back for quite some time.
So he actually had at least one, if not multiple, underage girls come into his house under the guise of giving him massages, and was reported to the police by a parent of one of these children. And it's kind of surprising that there was only one, because it turned out that there was, I think, something like 20 or 30 counts of these types of acts with many different girls at that time. But finally a parent came forward, reported to the police, and that opened up some sort of investigation that sort of mushroomed. It got swept under the rug. He had to plead guilty to some sort of criminal act or attempted solicitation or prostitution with an underage girl, but he didn't have any jail time. He had to do some community service minimally, and I do think he had to register, at least in the state of Florida, as a sex offender. But the thing was, he already had such an extensive network of heavily influential people, in the financial and political world, that there was almost, no information about this, no news. It didn't get any national spotlight. If it did, it was very minimal. And he continued, on until I think it was 2019 is when he was subsequently arrested again under these new charges that he ultimately committed suicide in jail. He was allowed, even after everybody knew about this in 07, 08, 09, he was allowed to go on for another 10, 11 years. But the reality is, if you look at this, he's been doing this since the late 80s.
Even until now, the information doesn't seem to be pouring out as you would see from a scandal of that magnitude. For example, if you compare it to Harvey Weinstein, then the information about people and names affiliated and surrounded was much more fluid. In this situation, it almost felt like there was a veil. It makes it very difficult to have this information flow out, and everyone wants to know about it, right? And is there a public interest in getting that information out?
When they raided his estate, they took videos, they took surveillance, they took documents, they took logs, and this is where it really became, the legal issue became, on the one hand, people who came to the island, they're all affluent to some extent. They can be celebrities, they can be business people, politicians, and on the one hand, the argument was made, if I came to the island but I did not participate in any nefarious activities, I simply came to the island because at that point Epstein was a known figure, a person of influence, and but no criminal activity was done on my behalf. Why should my name be dragged through the mud? On the flip side of it was, we want to know as the public, if there are politicians or people of influence, the public has a right to know. And some of the names are quite surprising.
I don't understand how those individuals would allow themselves to get involved in something like this. These are powerful people who have information maybe that's not available to you and me, and before they are affiliated and associated with people in a scene like that, you'd think they would want to run a little background check, figure out like
It's a bad look.
Yeah, yeah, it does not look great.
And to your point of all these people that are, held in high regard by the populace, why wouldn't they a little bit more careful or scrutinizing? It's funny because when he got arrested in 2019, right before he committed suicide, and we keep doing air quotes, we'll get to that, but those guys all disappeared, right?
Really fast.
Suddenly Bill Clinton hadn't seen him in 10 years. Donald Trump barred him from Mar-a-Lago. But allegedly he barred him from Mar-a-Lago because he was down at Mar-a-Lago, Epstein, and he was harassing some of the guests and other members and younger women and stuff like that. That's what Trump says, right? And, other people disappeared quickly. And so, everybody's fine to come to the party, right, while the music's playing. But when the music stops, that's when the real problems step up. And that's why, to your question or your point, when do we get to see the list of all these people? When are these guests? Because we're getting them here and there in little bits, and that's kind of why this came to light again now, because there was some previously sealed court documents from one of the cases against him or his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, right, that had previously redacted some names or sealed some names, and now some of these other names are coming out. When we want to see all of them, we want to know everybody that he was hanging out with.
And why? Why would people want to see the names that were on the list, the potential attendees to those parties and get-togethers and whatever you want to call it?
Well, we want to know who the bad actors are.
Right.
Because allegedly, this stuff was going around on a regular basis while those people allegedly were attending those events. So the question comes, did you not see anything that was happening around you? Were you involved in it? Were you involved in it, and that's why you're saying you're disassociating yourself?
The funny thing is, you bring up some of the people that were there, and were all of them culpable, right?
Right.
So it's a weird list. You brought up Harvey Weinstein. He was there, right? We know Clinton, Trump, and there was other people that were there, like Stephen Hawking. I mean, totally out of character, right? Katie Couric, Claudia Schiffer. Is it just socialites socializing? Very much so.
His girlfriend, who was basically his lieutenant, I'm talking about...
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the early reports that you hear how this all really got started is, she's going to shopping malls and other places that these teenage girls are frequenting after school. We're talking about in Florida, and she's picking up some of these girls. Come hang out at my friend's house. You just got to be in a bikini, hang out by the pool. Then that, pushes to like, he wants a massage. I'll be in the room with you. Like, she's the one who's really like driving all this for him, and is less threatening and less overwhelming and less scary because she's a woman and she's attractive and she had money and affiliation too. But there's other accounts of her being maybe even potentially more evil than he is. She got popped too. She's in jail for 20 years or something right now, and she was also civilly sued and had to pay millions to at least one or two of like the early victims. It's a wild story.
Now this is not just the party. This is them bringing, servicing the guests with underage girls. It's a little difficult to say that the important individuals who were there had no clue whatsoever. It's just a little difficult to say that. But so now they got Maxwell convicted.
She's in jail.
Right. So at some point, while the criminal case is pending, Epstein commits suicide when he was in jail. How convenient is that for everybody who's involved? Because he has a lot of information in his head.
All of it.
I mean, God knows what he could have testified and what he could have, the names he could have named, the answers he could have provided, right? But all of it is happening, and it's very strange. He was under suicide watch. How he was able to kill himself in such a high-profile case and hang himself is a little bit bizarre. I mean, who knows? But then all of it is somehow coming back because there were multiple lawsuits that were filed and they were settled by the victims. I mean, we're forgetting right at the end of the day, there were young victims that suffered because of this, and some of the claims were settled, including against Maxwell. And
Both.
now this thing is in the spotlight again because I think as a result of one of the claims and the settlements, there was discussion about this list, the list of people who are attending, right?
One of the things that came out of the Me Too movement is the idea of believing victims. If we did not have the Me Too movement and it wasn't in that atmosphere of really listening to these victims and taking them at their word and really looking into it, had it been prior to the Me Too movement, considering the list of the affluent people, the politicians, the people of money, the people of means that were involved in this particular, in this situation, it is very likely that a lot of these victims would either be shamed or they would not be believed, just like happens in many of these situations. People have actually listened to them, took it a step further, and like with Prince Andrew, he had to come out and say that there is no excuse. It's not that you just took a picture with an underage girl. It probably was a lot more than that. And he came out and he had to. I think he's one of the few ones that actually had to confront that in front of the media, in front of everybody, and say this was inappropriate.
Who are the victims? They're young girls, underage,
Taking advantage.
potentially poor, taken advantage, and it's not even a boss. I think he's 2 steps removed. It's mega billionaires, politicians, not just politicians, but the top politicians, and you have this unequal power where the underage, weak victim, even if they're engaging in the activities, are they really engaging in those activities voluntarily? They have no power, no say here in a situation like that.
No, I agree with you.
We'll wait for part 2.
We'll wait for
3,
part
4.
2. Yeah, very sad, but interesting.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right, guys, it was good. Good to see you.
All right, we'll see how it develops.